and maybe we'll have a few more file in. We'll see what happens. Now then, what I want to do today, as we've done for the past several classes, and I like this setup for two reasons. One, we take advantage of the technology that we have, which, I mean, look around. It's almost like we're in a low-key version of Star Trek in a room like this, so I almost feel like we have to. But secondly, the world that we're living in, we want to not get too close to each other, so we reach out virtually, even if we are in the same room. And what I mean by all that is, I sent you guys an email a few moments ago. It should be at the top of your inbox. In there are two things that you need. Number one, there's a PDF that we're going to look at. And number two, there's a link. And that part you should be pretty used to. That link is a shared document. That's the virtual bit where we're going to work with each other, but not next to each other, right? Try to maintain distance and all that stuff. Erica, I even, Grace, I think because I emailed you, I even thought to forward it to you. So we're all on the same page. All right. So how are we going to do this? A little bit more context. First of all, I understand that we are getting to crunch time in terms of the second paper. It's due, I believe, next week. I'm not great with dates, but that's why we have a syllabus. However, by the same token, I also told you guys we would talk about your revisions today. And for some of you who weren't here, maybe this is new news. I put your grades up for your first paper. All that's there for you, my feedback. You can revise. I do not require it. I leave it optional, but I recommend that everyone does, not least of which because on average, people tend to do about 5 points better. But every semester, I have a couple people that'll do 10 points better, 20 points better. Like, that is not unheard of. So no matter what you got on that first paper, if you're not happy with it, this is your chance, right? And I would also offer, especially the past couple weeks, I honestly feel like I've seen a couple light bulbs kind of turn on with some of you in terms of what we're actually trying to do in these papers. And I don't think that light bulb was on by the time the first paper was due. It just wasn't. Some of you will go back and look at your work and be kind of surprised that you turned that in. You could fix it now. You could do better. So I'll leave that to you. Anyway, paper 2 will be due next week. The revision, I believe, is due the week after that. We have a bit of time, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about the revision today, get that out of the way, so then the next couple classes we will completely focus on paper 2 and kind of move forward like that. The last thing I'll say before we dive into what we're going to do, some of you may have already decided somehow that you're not going to do the revision. That's up to you. And so this class you may feel like won't offer you very much. I'll tell you this, everything we work on today in terms of the revision will absolutely be to your benefit for the second paper as well. Like we said at the start of all this, the first paper is kind of half of what I'm asking you to do in the second paper. So practicing this stuff is going to help you with the critique as well. Okay? All right, so what are we doing? The PDF I sent you is 2.5 pages from they're the first 2.5 pages from chapter 2 in Ansari, okay? Now, why is that important? Well, I didn't assign these pages the first go around. Some of you read them because some of you went above and beyond, and that's great, but most of you didn't. So these will be new to you. But I tell you it's at the beginning of the second chapter. It's early in the book. It's right after we've talked about emerging adulthood, sort of what old folks used to do versus what we do now, right? And it's getting into that question of how do people interact with each other online? Like, that's really what chapter 2 is about, okay? So when you read these couple pages here in a minute, that's the context that you need to sort of understand why he's saying the things that he's saying. What I want you to do, how many people do we know? Okay. Yeah, all right, we can make this work. What I want you to do, step 1, would be to read the 2.5 pages, okay? Step 2, I'm going to group you up. And again, a couple people may have to move, but I want to remind everyone just to, stay apart. Don't get right next to each other. I'm going to group you up, and I want you to think about 2 things, okay? And you can have these in the back of your mind as you read. Number 1, if I asked you to pull 1 or 2 quotations out of these 2.5 pages, what would you choose, right? You're going to go to your group and talk to them about that, okay? And you're going to type that up in the shared document that we have. Second thing I want you to think about, I'm going to actually leave a mystery for right now, because I just want you worried about the first one. We have to be able to find good quotations for the revision as well as paper 2, okay? So I want you thinking about quotable material. To that end, and then I'll cut you loose to do this, why do we quote? Why do we bother? Why do we pull from a text and put it in our papers? Yeah? What? He said very quietly. Language. You quote for language. The big hang up a lot of you had on the first paper, and again, I think you've gotten better to this point, you're quoting for ideas. It's not like you can't ever do that, but if that's the only reason you pull a quotation, what do you usually end up doing? Anybody know? When you pull a quotation only for an idea, you're not interested in the language, you're not interested in how a thing is said, you're only interested in what is said. That's a very fancy way to talk about summary. You just summarize the book. That's not what we're doing, right? So we're going to try to work on that some today. We're going to hopefully avoid that today. We're quoting for language. What stands out to you? What's interesting? He's going to say a couple things in here that might pique your interest. Take a note, right? And when you go to your group, compare notes. All right, so take a couple minutes, read these 2.5 pages. We'll group up. We'll figure out quotations. Go for it. All right. Groups I figured out while you guys were finishing that up. And again, let's keep some space between us here, but I think if you could move over maybe to this chair, you three could work together right here, right? And you could move a little bit, but again, don't sit in each other's laps. Lillian, if you kind of, maybe not quite that chair, right? But you're gonna work with Madeline. Hi. And then you guys, pretty much, Miles, you can just kind of turn around and you guys can work together. Okay? All right. So all I want you to do right now, there's gonna be a step after this. But for right now, hopefully you have some thoughts. I saw some of you taking notes. I hope all of us were at least taking some mental notes. As a group, in this blank document, and you guys will be group 1, you guys will be group 2, you guys will be group 3. I'm going to type up 1 to 2 quotations you feel like you could pull, you could use in a paper. And I'm not even asking for your thoughts on it right now. We will. But all I want in here, give us the quotations. Okay? Take a couple minutes, talk it out, pick somebody to type them up for you. Go for it. First thing we got to do, just like we did last time, clean these up just a little bit. And we're not going to concentrate on this today, but I want to give you guys just a few pointers on quotations. Okay. For one, let's go ahead and. All right. This is a terribly small thing that you will very rarely use, but in this case, especially because I do think it's a good quotation, 2 groups pulled it, right? Probably tells us something. When you have to quote a source that is quoting a source, like we do with Jewish in my zip code, okay? Notice you're going to use quotation marks, but then he's using them too. And what you actually are supposed to do in that case is a single quotation mark. So they've done it here, all right? Now one other thing, and I know this is super like in the weeds in terms of grammar, but I keep it brief when we do this. The other thing I want to point out to you, notice how you have a single quotation mark here and a double here, but then you look at their version and it's single on both sides. The reason for that is you mark your quotation with the doubles, okay? Whatever you're quoting in your paper, however it looks, needs to begin and end with a double quotation mark, okay? So, in your case, your quotation ends at the end of that code, right? Here, theirs keeps going. They wanted to quote a little more, so they use a single. Does that make sense? Again, that's pretty in the weeds. I don't know that any professor in the future would necessarily dock you for that, but you would get a note about it. Like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. So now you don't have to do that. Now you just... And weirdly, you will probably impress someone in your future if you just know to do that. So, all right. Anything else we need to clean up? Well, I guess we could supply a period, yes. Okay. Next thing I want you guys to do. Hopefully, you have a pretty good sense of why your group chose your quotations, okay? Very briefly, shouldn't take a minute, minute and a half. Look at the other groups, look at what they have, and just, again, for that minute, minute and a half, consider why they chose theirs. How would you use it in a paper, all right? Go read them real quick. Three. Take another minute doing that. We'll talk about it. All right. While you guys were perusing the other group's work, I just went back and added some citations. I know you all know to do that. I didn't specifically mention it, but it's a good habit to get in. Some of you are crazy and wait until the end of the paper to do that stuff. That's bananas to me. Just do it as you go. But anyway. All right. So our big issue now. First of all, I guess let's go ahead and say it as a class. I think all of these are pretty good quotations actually, right? Like, again, hopefully you like what your group chose, but I think any of them could work, actually. That said, let's pick one for the sake of what we're about to do. Which one do you guys think we could get some mileage out of? You guys really kind of focused on two things, right? I mean, they're different quotations, but what are the two things you guys seem to keep focusing on? What? Oh, come on now.
Like, how they got started in the Jew website, they just like it.
Jewish in my zip code was a big favorite, and what was the other one? It's gonna get murdered. Getting catfish is one thing, getting murdered is a little different. That's a little stronger. Yeah. Why did we focus on those two elements? Some of you, again, chose quotations from totally different pages, right? Why do you think we kept coming back to those two themes? Jewish in my zip code and murder. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do the second one first. Why does it stand out to you, these two themes?
I don't know, like I said, it's kind of funny. It's out a little more.
Why? Murder's funny?
Well, it's just the way he talks is kind of funny.
Okay. Somebody help him. I agree. That's why I chose these pages. Somebody help him out. You guys thought it was kind of funny, him talking about murder? Kind of got your attention? Why? Does context matter? If he wrote a couple pages about how he just enjoys murder and then gave you the details, maybe less comedic, right? Hopefully. What makes it funny here? Somebody talk to me about the context. Why are we even talking about murder?
Maybe because he sounds like over dramatic, which makes
Okay, I'm inclined to agree. Why do you say that?
I mean, most of the time, they're just going to be catfish, not really trying to kill anybody.
So he's worried about getting tricked online, like getting duped by somebody pretending to be someone they're not, right? But he takes it to this nth degree. Well, they're gonna start by tricking me. They're gonna finish by killing me. Aha, funny. Now, why is that funny again? I think you're right, but I want to hear it one more time.
Just because it's like a dramatic.
It's over the top. It's over dramatic. It's hyperbolic, right? We keep coming back to this question in both texts in different ways of it being hyperbolic at times. And there's ways to use that. Here, I guess if you're gonna talk about murder, you want to do it in a way where it sounds far-fetched, right? Because otherwise we would take him maybe seriously. That's a different tone. We agree to that. Serious murder versus haha murder. Very different conversation. Okay. I think so. I think that's why all of you, in one way or another, I mean, group one, if you gave us another one, you may have ended up with murder as well. We're kind of swimming around that idea. What about Jewish in my zip code? That feels very different, in a way. Why did we all pick up on that? All of you did, I believe, right? Yeah. Yeah. And he keeps saying it, right? He keeps finding different ways to say Jewish in my zip code. His wife. And you learn later in the 2.5 pages, children. At some point, right here, a new life, he even italicizes. Real quick, I just want to what does it mean when he italicizes new life? Why do that? Any ideas on that? It's emphasis, right? You can read it differently, even. It's not a new life was created, it's a new life was created. Because one moment years ago, he decided to type Jewish 90046 and hit enter. Why is that noteworthy? Again, you keep coming to this idea of it stands out. Why does that stand out, do you think? Lily?
It's bizarre.
Okay, why?
It's not how most people find their spouse, I don't think.
Well, traditionally, I would absolutely agree. I mean, again, part of his project is to get us thinking that like maybe it's becoming more common, right? But you used a pretty loaded word, bizarre. Like why characterize it like that? Why does it, and again, somebody can help her out if you want, why does it seem so strange for this guy to have typed in Jewish and his zip code and then everything that comes after? Why is that strange to us? Is it not? Is it not strange? I see several people nodding. Okay. Well, why is that? What is it? When you say something is strange, you're basically admitting, well, no, I'll ask you. What does it mean to say something is strange? Out of the ordinary. What's ordinary? How do you know what's ordinary? What's normal? How do you know? I'll give you an example. If I came in one day and, like in a nightmare, forgot my shirt, I was up here teaching, I think you would all pretty quickly pick up on that. Probably think that it felt strange, out of the ordinary. Why? Huh? Not what we're used to, not what you expect, right? We have certain standards, expectations, we have a certain idea of how the world works. One of those is we wear shirts. My 5-year-old is young enough, he doesn't have those expectations yet. When he gets in the door, all the clothes come off. He's a very free little boy. And we ask him, he's like, I'm comfortable. What? You know, not abnormal to him. Give him a couple years, we'll make fun of him for it. So, how does this not meet your expectations? Jewish in my zip code. What are your expectations when it comes to eventually finding a wife, children, the whole setup? Yeah.
Maybe just not on social media like that.
What do you expect? Like, again, when I say that, all of you picture something. What do you picture? This is what's known as a softball question.
Something that's simple.
Like what? How does it work? You're gonna meet your wife or your husband, or whatever you want to call him. How's that usually happen? We'll start there, because that's what he's describing. How's that work? Where do you meet him at?
Nowadays, probably maybe like Instagram or Snapchat.
Okay. Well, it seemed like earlier we were talking about tradition, right? This is at the very least not traditional. Traditionally, where would you meet somebody like that?
Maybe somewhere where you work with them.
Okay. Or school?
Yes.
Yeah. Somewhere where you might see a person for a little while, you kind of feel like you get to know them, and then you actually talk to them and you get to know them even better, right? You kind of slowly build a relationship, right? Sort of organically, just kind of happens sometimes, right? But this is, again, where was it? Oh, this quotation. Ansari makes the point that this is the same way he would find a Wendy's. I really want a Baconator. You know, Wendy's in my zip code. It works the same way now. That's strange to us. It's new and different. Doesn't meet our expectations. That's interesting. All right. So we got all that out in the air. I'm gonna ask you guys. We can talk about any of these, honestly. Which one do you guys want to try? We'll whittle them down this way first. Jewish in my zip code or murder? Huh?
I guess.
I wanted one of you to say something. I like murder. Okay, cool. Which murder quotation do you guys think? That'd be this one
Yeah.
or this one? This one you say?
Yeah.
Is that cool with everybody? All right. We're just making decisions, but that's cool. I like it. All right. For the sake of clarity, I'm just going to move it down here. All right. So the first thing we got to do with any quotation, now we're going to build a body paragraph, by the way. Before we can do that, we're missing something. What are we missing with this quotation? We got the punctuation, we got the citation, right?
The indentation.
What's up?
The indentation.
Oh, for the paragraph, yeah, an indentation, we'll need that. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will get there. Before that even, what's up? Introducing what? Good. We need information, right? We need context. If you need to, and you might, go to page 69, and I apologize for my fingers, by the way. You get to see just how dry my damn fingers are. They crack occasionally and bleed in this weather, like it's rough. Anyway. All right, so it's right here at the bottom of page 69. Maybe my stalker, probably an Indian dude, sees my profile and thinks, oh, here's that comedian guy in OkCupid. Finally, I have a way to reach out to him and slowly plot his murder. Okay? What's the context? How do we arrive at what I'm going to go ahead and say is kind of an insane quotation? How do we get there? What are we talking about?
Him looking on a social media platform, dating.
Well, specifically, it's not just social media, it's more specific, right?
Yeah.
Dating app.
Right.
And what other part of the equation do we need to make sure we mention? It's not just going on to a dating app.
He said he wouldn't consider it.
Do what?
He said he wouldn't consider it.
Why wouldn't he consider it? Yeah, but why is it riskier for him?
Because he's a celebrity.
He's famous. Like, there's some inherent risk to anything, right? But if you're famous, people know who you are. He's kind of saying they could be looking for it, basically. So he feels like it's even less safe for him. So we'll say that, right? Okay. Now, one thing I'm going to draw your attention to. As I always say, I write like me, you write like you, but all of you are capable of this. Always said, this is his general conversation he's having on these pages, right? The dangers of, you guys immediately had that verb catfish. I know all of you, every time I teach this class, the idea of catfishing comes up. You're so worried about being catfished. He's kind of talking about that, right? But then we get more specific. He says, yeah, but for me, it's even worse. I'm not just worried about getting tricked. I'm worried about getting stalked, getting murdered. And that has a lot to do with the fact that he's a celebrity, right? None of us, at least as far as I know, have that particular concern. The other thing I'm going to do, and I haven't done it yet, I want to point you to it. That's all of our context. We still, in a perfect world, want to make this quotation part of a sentence, okay? There's all kinds of ways to do that. I've done it a lot more than you, so I'm pretty quick at it, which is why I stopped myself. As his celebrity status could mean his. The reason I do this is because I'm about to do this. Okay? I eliminated the first two words of the quotation, which in this case weren't super important, okay, to make this part make sense. His celebrity status could mean his stalker, probably, and see it reads right into it. That's how you want your context to read with your quotations, if you can manage it. Now, because we've done that, though, I have to show you one more thing. What we've done here, it said my stalker, and we've made it now say his. So for the rest of the sentence to make sense, we're going to have to change all these. He kind of did it for us there. All right. Last bit of grammar weeds, and then we'll actually talk about the quotation. Does anyone know why I put his in brackets? Good. Anytime you alter a quotation, like I've changed a word here, you put brackets around it, you're basically saying, I changed this to make sense. I didn't actually change the spirit of the quotation. I'm faithful to the quotation, but I changed a word or two so that the sentence would make sense. You put brackets to tell people that, okay? All right. All that said, we have some really good context. We have a quotation now. Now we can do the hard part. We kind of agreed, I mean, really it's just me and you talking there for a minute, but that's all good. Everyone seemed to be on board with using this quotation. Why? Why would we pull this quotation? Keep in mind, we're talking about paper 1, but it's not too different from paper 2. Why is this quotation quotable? What stands out to you? All of you seem to want to talk about murder. Why is that? Murder interests you? Well, qualify it now. Why? Why? Hopefully. Yeah? Again, somewhat similar to our conversation about Jewish and my zip code, this is not an everyday occurrence. Murder, at least not in our daily lives. Okay. So there's like, is it fair to say there's like a shock value there almost to hearing him talk about murder? Like, why does it grab your attention, do you think? Can somebody give me some language for that?
Maybe because we know it's most likely not going to happen.
To who?
Him. It's just like interesting to say that.
Okay, I mean, and again, ideally, it's not something you hear about all the time. It's not something that happens all the time. Cool. We could start there. That's a pretty available reading, right? But it is a reading. So let's talk about it. You know what? Let's give a little more ammunition. He doesn't just say he'll be murdered. What's the other thing he's worried about before that?
He'll be stopped.
Stalked. And again, that does happen. But you notice every time it happens, it's news. That's because it's it doesn't happen all the time. So that, we're going to argue, gets our attention. To begin with, the idea that Ansari would be stalked and murdered in this way stands out because why? I just want somebody else to finish the sentence for us. Why does it stand out to us? Like, the fact that Ansari supposes he could be stalked and murdered like this, we're saying stands out. Yeah, what's up?
Can I just take a shot at that?
Sure.
Maybe because a lot of people have that worry or something like that.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know, there's, maybe got the folks that are like real hesitant to use the internet because they're always afraid of overstepping information and they're going to get stalked or murdered or whatever.
Okay, all right, well, we all read things in a particular way. You have a tendency to jump ahead. We're going to file that away. I like that. Let's build to that a little bit. So much more basically, and again, we've kind of said it, but Ansari talking about being stalked and murdered, why does that stand out to us? On a very basic level. Like, you might even take this for granted, but that we need to put it here. Why? What is it about the idea of being stalked and murdered? Why does that get our attention?
It happens sometimes.
Say what now? Hold on, say it a little louder.
It happens sometimes in the real world, but not every day.
Okay. And again, that's enough. Like, we're just starting analysis, right? Like, it's not, we might end up somewhere like that, but to begin with, because it's what? Far from an everyday occurrence. Again, one of the tests we have, the street corner test, if you're walking outside after this class and you hear someone say the word murder, you're gonna kind of wonder what they're talking about, right? I told him I would murder him. You're like, whoa. You're gonna eavesdrop. You're not gonna mean to, but you're gonna want to know, is she being serious right now? Like, you're gonna have questions. It gets our attention. Okay. And I misspelled occurrence because I'm an idiot. All right. Anyway, now after that, we got to have more to say. This is a start, but it cannot be the end. You can't simply argue someone saying murder is shocking, grabs your attention, because we all get that. Okay. Now beyond that, we can think about context. We can think about, to put it another way, sort of the conversation that's going on around this quotation. And that brings me back to what the point Sam was starting to make. And I'm sorry, could you try to make it again? You don't mind?
It's kind of like I said, that, we all know everybody that is super hesitant to get on the internet because they're always afraid they're going to be stalked or watched or stolen from or anything.
So it's this, and in a way that kind of brings me back to you guys being so scared of being catfished, right? Like, it is, weirdly, it's this thing that we don't talk about very often, but something about, and we may have to talk about it here, something about getting online at all, but especially getting online and interacting with strangers, to us, we sense a little bit of risk there. Like, especially, I'm sure your parents have probably told you numerous times to be very careful with what information you post online or like what you do online. I'm sure somebody like had a talk with you. What are some of the things they say? I am actually curious. I'll need to probably have this talk with my sons at some point. What do your parents tell you to look out for?
They just be saying it's dangerous. They be trying to go dramatic to make sure you don't do it.
Like what? Like,
They'll be saying you'll probably get stalked or killed, stuff like that.
so they sound like Ansari.
Yeah, they just be doing that dramatic stuff. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
When your kids play a video game, they're gonna be like, you're gonna be doing that. Maybe
Yeah.
that's
No, I grew up in the 90s. I'm very familiar. I grew up when Mortal Kombat was a big deal. I'm very familiar with that conversation.
Yeah, it's just.
Okay. Well, and again, I like how you kind of make the point. This is an important difference. To hear you tell it about your folks when they're introducing a similar idea to what Ansari is talking about, they're also hyperbolic, maybe, in your opinion, a little dramatic, but there it's completely serious, right? So somehow we understand this is comedic. To me, we're going to have to mention that difference, right? So we're still gonna, I think Sam's giving us a nice little sort of lighthouse to drive toward. But before that, let's explain why this is funny. This is rhetorical analysis, okay? Why is this funny? Instead of, most of the time when you hear about murder or what have you, again, it's shocking, it's troubling, things like this. Why is it funny here? Can we point to anything in the quotation? We haven't even necessarily done that yet, right? Another way to consider this, is there anything in the quotation we can point to and say, this is how you know this is a joke, as opposed to something serious? Probably an Indian dude. Why? And again, this is the point I'm going to keep making. You cannot take this for granted. Why, when he said that, everyone in the room immediately thought, yeah, that's right. Why? Why does that tell you this is a joke? Because you got to speak up, dog. What?
Stalker could be anybody.
It could be. Well, why does Aziz Ansari say probably an Indian dude?
Because he's Indian and he thinks another Indian.
Why? Yeah, go ahead.
We always joke about like Indian telemarketers and stuff, all that stuff we're familiar with.
I mean, yeah, but I think this has a little bit, again, I think this has a little bit more to do with the fact that his name is Aziz Ansari. Like, if I made this joke, you know, I'm getting stalked probably by an Indian dude, I think that makes less sense. Why?
Oh wait, yeah, because he's Pakistani. Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that.
So why does that work? Again, we're trying to figure this out on the fly, but let's talk it out. Why can he make that joke? Why do we know it's a joke when he makes it? Why does his stalker, according to his logic, have to be Indian? Or, sorry, will probably be Indian. Why? I hope you guys don't have super detailed answers to this question, but how does stalking work?
Find the information and follow you.
And follow you. They obsess over you. Good. Why do they obsess over the people that they stalk? These stalkers. Do what? They want them. Do they want anything else? Is it fair to say stalkers usually, in some ways, and again, all this is very twisted because these are broken people, do they idolize a lot of the time, it seems like, the people they're stalking? Is that fair? Well, why, in this hypothetical situation, does Aziz Ansari suppose his stalker would be Indian then? As opposed to a guy that looks like me? Why?
I think he said later that he could like use his face.
He does a face-off surgery and does what?
And he just becomes a leader.
Takes over his life,
Yeah,
he says. Yeah. He wants to be in this crazy hypothetical situation. He wants to be Aziz Ansari. Okay. Let's find a way to talk about that. We got to say something about, here, I'll start you guys. Importantly, why is this meant as a joke? To bring it all the way back, we want to talk about probably an Indian dude, okay? How does that tell us this is a joke? Specifically because it's Aziz Ansari saying it, something about being stalked by a guy that he says is probably going to be of Indian descent. How does that tell us it's not serious here? Probably an Indian dude. Huh? I don't know that it's sarcastic. He goes pretty far with the idea that it could be an Indian guy.
He's so specific, it's like,
Huh? Okay, why is that funny? The specifics.
Maybe I'm way too serious for that one. But just feel like there's no way to be serious.
Oh, okay. Well, we could start there. I don't mind that either. All right, so what Sam is saying is, it's clearly meant as a joke. If this, and I have trouble talking and typing, so hang on. If this hypothetical what's the opposite of serious here? What are we trying to say? The book as a whole is not terribly serious, right? How would you describe it? Huh? I know, but we've said comedic already. We're trying to find a different.
Funny.
Okay, yeah, sure. What is normally a pretty funny book. So part of our logic here is, and it would be strange for at the start of chapter 2, after all the ha-ha, for him to say, all right, here's 2.5 pages of like CSI stuff, you know. That would be out of place for sure. But again, I like what Darius said about probably an Indian dude. I think we can get more specific to this quotation. And you guys are struggling with the avenue we were going down, so I'll give you a different one. We have yet to talk about how he says anything. Probably an Indian dude. Talk to me about how that's phrased.
It sounds like he's just like making remarks. He's just casually saying it.
How do you know that?
Probably because the way he's writing it, I just don't see it going as actually.
Well, no, hold on. Let's get real specific. Stay with me on this. We are only talking about here, right now, probably an Indian dude. You say he's less serious. You say he's not serious. I'm telling you, you can do that with just those words. Was it probably an Indian dude? There's 4 words. You got 25% chance. I would have these on that. Yes, but there's a better one. Now we're down to 3. I'll tell you what, it's not and. What? Say it with your chest, please. Dude! How do we know? How can we argue? He's not being completely serious here when he's talking about being stalked and murdered. He says probably an Indian dude. What's it about the word dude? What does dude mean? Do what? A guy? Denotatively, we talked about this one of the first days of class. If you look dude up in the dictionary, it's going to say a male, right? Now, connotatively, though, dude says more than that. What are the connotations around the word dude? Because he could say probably an Indian guy, probably an Indian man. Different now, right? How does dude change it? No? Dude doesn't change it for you guys.
Maybe because they make it as like a slang word.
It's slang. Again, we could start there. Okay. Moreover, okay. Now again, I'm saying we're starting there. I built the sentence in a way it's going to force us to say more. But let's start with slang. What does it do to the idea we're talking about to use slang here? Again, that kind of slang. When do you normally use or hear the word dude?
Chilling with your friends.
Maybe hanging out with a couple dudes?
Yeah.
Sure. Probably not talking about murder. Okay. So basically what we're saying is we're taking what is normally a very serious topic, ending someone else's life, but we're approaching it linguistically, informally, less seriously. Is that part of what makes it funny? Couple nods. Okay. So we can say that. A slang term for man, which, oh, thanks Google, in contrast to, right? All we're saying there is, in this one moment, he says a thing that stands out to us because it's, if you hear about a murder on the news, at no point is the news lady gonna turn to the camera and say, some Indian dude was murdered. Like, they're not gonna, right? That would be funny unintentionally, all on its own. Okay. So that's one thing we can point to from the quotation and say, I'm pretty sure he's joking. Now, I said this already. I've had you do it twice, but Sam, you gotta do it one more time for us. Do you remember, I shelved it, kind of lighthouse I said we were gonna drive toward. You said something about getting online, interacting with other people.
Oh yeah, I'm like, it's like a shared fear that a lot of people have.
So it's a fear we all have. And you made the point that your folks, and all of you seemed to nod when he was talking, like, at some point your parents or someone else sat you down and was like, can't be, completely casual on the internet because somebody will find you, or whatever. Or they steal your identity or your credit card or what have you, right? Okay. So is it fair? It seems like what Sam is saying is, specifically what we're talking about in this quotation is stuff like this. But a little more generally, thematically even, we're talking about this, you said shared fear, this shared anxiety we have about interacting with other people online. Is that fair? A couple slow nods. Okay. Well, let's try talking about that too. Well, before we do that, actually a question. I mentioned before, paper 1 is like a half step to paper 2, right? Paper 1 is exactly what we're doing here, okay? I'm going to ask a question. I hope you have an answer, otherwise it's going to hurt me severely. What are we missing from here that would make this into paper 2? What's up? Did you just say critique? Yeah, the title of the paper. What does that mean? What would we have to add to this paragraph for it to be a critique? A judgment. Thank you. That's what I was hoping somebody would say. And I want to entertain that here for a moment just to make a point. If we were critiquing Ansari, which we are not, I think we have enough to sort of talk about it here. What's this quotation trying to do? Because we got to answer that before we can get to judging whether or not it accomplishes it, right? What do we think this quotation is trying to get from the reader? Seems to have something, according to the road you guys took us down, it seems to have something to do with his tone, his approach, right, to this information. But what is this information? Is it just what Sam is talking about, this shared fear? Is there anything else going on?
Maybe just to tell us to be careful because something like that can happen.
Maybe. Well, hang on. Hold on. All right. So, oh no. I can't type. here's what I'm wondering. You gave this to us at the start of all this. You implied that this quotation is actually pretty different from the usual talk you get about this stuff, right? But importantly, you said it was also similar. You said your parents are dramatic, somebody's gonna come get you, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna put any weird stuff out there, but you made the point that in terms of subject matter, it's not all that different actually.
Yeah.
Okay. But again, what we're saying is, interestingly, the tone is different. Your parents are very serious, this is very much not. So what we're trying to think about is, how does the change in tone affect sort of how the message hits you, I guess. Okay? That's the big question. If we can answer that question, we will rock this paragraph. How does it make it different? Again, I'm asking, like, go back to whoever sat you down and maybe, according to our description, gave you like maybe a little over dramatic description of what could happen to you online. You know, after they left, you just kind of looked at the ceiling, like, I'm glad that's over. That was ridiculous, type of thing. But then you read this, it's the same idea, but it affects you a little bit differently. Sure, go for it. You look like you're trying to.
Kind of makes fun of it.
Makes fun of what?
Like the whole concept of that.
Okay.
Like the whole talk of parents meeting.
Okay. Well, let me get that down.
On the same level as
This, about, in other words, he ridicules, good verb, the and what was the tail end of what you said? What does that offer us? Let's push on that some. What does Sam mean by that? Puts us on the same level as him when he ridicules this idea. Do you guys agree with that statement, first of all? Like in a way, you're kind of saying you see where he's coming from when he ridicules it, when he makes a joke out of it. Okay, why?
Because I'm not gonna take it seriously, somebody's gonna stop and try to kill me.
You said because you don't take it seriously?
Yeah, I'm not gonna take it that serious.
But a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay.
Not as serious as he's taking it, or as how he's sounding like he's taking it.
Right. But so the fact that he's making a joke out of it, I mean, again, I'm asking here. The fact that he's making a joke out of it is sort of along the same lines as you guys think about it. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Cool. We can say that. Which, I don't know, is in line with okay. Now, where did we end up? Because we're almost out of time. What we said by the end here is, you can relate to it. That's all we've really said, right? Here's the important difference, because you guys keep coming back to ideas like that. To the best of your ability, you have got to find ways to be more specific than that. I keep saying this. There are all kinds of ways to relate to somebody, right? But in this particular case, this particular quotation, we're saying we relate to him because not just of what he's talking about, but how he's talking about it. Do you see what I'm saying? The tone he uses is kind of the same tone you have when you think about it, right? So we're saying he relates to you in how he presents the information. Is everybody with me there? Okay, again, a few slow nods. I appreciate it. The last little bit of time we have, we are going to try. We are going to really try to come up with a topic sentence. what I've told you before, I'll scroll it a little bit for you. Usually, if you do your job, and I think we mostly have, your real argument is going to be in the last third of your body paragraph. So look over that last third real quick. Can somebody try to help us come up with a sentence that sums that stuff up? Probably in somebody's way. We'll start with this. We're talking about the quotation, but we're not going to say in our topic sentence, this quotation from Ansari, because that's every paragraph. What are we focused on from the quotation? What do we end up talking about? Mostly. His tone. How would we describe the tone here? The C word you use. This is the C word you can say in class. Somebody said that earlier. Comedic. Okay. That's what we're focused on. That's a big part of our evidence. What about that comedic tone? Why is it important that he's comedic here? Another way to talk about it, how does he apply that tone? What does he use it for? Okay. Somebody other than Sam, because he's carrying us right now. I agree. What something serious are we talking about here? Yes. Do what? This is our argument now. What are we saying about that tone applied to that subject matter? How does that affect the reader? What does that offer Ansari when he writes that stuff? To present that subject matter with that tone. You guys are so close, it's killing me. Stop reading words. You guys are just reading words hoping the answer's there. That's not how this works. Listen to me. We talked about a very serious thing, okay? But we did it in a way you're very much not used to, right? Nobody before now, probably, has talked to you about these two things in a joking fashion. What's the effect of that? We were talking about this, moments ago. How does that affect you? For him to joke about this stuff. Did you laugh at all, even silently to yourself when you were reading these pages? Huh? No? You weren't entertained in the slightest?
I really wasn't entertained.
Interesting.
I just read it.
I wonder how much of that might do with the fact that I assigned it in class. It may not be a fair environment. Either way, how does it affect you? For him to approach this material with this tone. It's in the bottom third of that paragraph. We've already done it. We just have to put it up top. Most of you are reading. Take a minute. Read the bottom third. What do we say about the tone in terms of this subject matter? Why do you guys, maybe entertain is too strong a word, but why do you seem to appreciate this tone? That's what you were telling me before. Why do you appreciate him taking this tone with this subject matter?
It lightens what you actually talking about. Doesn't make it serious.
And why do you appreciate that? Sure, but we got a little more specific here. It does. But why do you guys, again, specific to this quotation, seem to appreciate the less serious tone when we're talking about online stalking and murder? Is your hand up? I can't tell. Go for it. It's your point of view. That's it, right? Aligns, we'll say, with that's a gross sentence. We could do better, but we're out of time. But check that out. That's a body paragraph, guys. That is a pretty damn good body paragraph. And you guys made it. I wrote it, but that's all your ideas. Okay? I know we're out of time, but this is important. Somebody highlighted it. Interesting move. Anyway, topic sentence. We introduced the quotation with context. We got all that paraphernalia out of the way. The bulk of our paragraph, and we could have gone further, but we were a little pressed for time. These are all your thoughts. We started out a little bit generally. We got much more specific. We talked about dude. That helped us think about the tone. And then we, finally, when I kind of forced you guys to think about, well, why does that tone matter? Might it matter in this case, given the subject matter? As it turns out, yeah. We got to a pretty cool idea by the end. This is how the first paper works. And again, for those of you out there who aren't going to revise, I recommend that you do. But even if you don't, everything we did today, you still got to do for the second paper. The only difference is you would then apply a judgment, right? That's the big change with paper 2. So all of this is good practice for either one. Are there any questions for me before I let you go? Okay. Your rough draft of paper 2 is due next time. Turn it in, get that stuff ready to go. SI tomorrow?
Yes, 9:30 to 10:30.
9:30 to 10:30, it's online, you can be in your PJs. Sounds great to me. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.